Marco.
I took a full load.
Hello, my friends. We are back. By we, of course, I just mean me, but we're also together, so I guess you can say we're back. How do we sound? Hello, my friends. Sounds fucking amazing, of course. Wow. Yeah, so, never let them know your next move, I guess. I was live, and then I had to end, and then it ended on its own because the whole entire computer crashed. Fuck yeah, well, all of OBS, and yeah, that's good. So it attempted to reconnect, and when it couldn't reconnect, it just ended and posted a 1-minute stream, which was all intro. And of course, my mic was muted, but I was shouting expletives behind the screen, so that's good. I decided, you know what? Maybe Chrome is putting too much stress on my CPU and GPU when I stream because I have Chrome open and OBS, and I'm streaming video and audio at the same time. So you know what? I'm going to be a smart boy. I'm going to use Safari. And Safari was arguably even fucking worse. And let's not even get started on what I was struggling before the OBS was crashing, which was my light, my Elgato key light. Putting you on the spot, Elgato. Today decided, of all the days when I just plug it in and hit the button and it turns on, today it's like, I'm like, come on, Elgato key light. You know, this is what we do. You know, we're trying to pay the bills. You know, we've got the lawsuits. You know, we're trying to remember those lawyers that I talked to you about. We're trying to pay those. Elgato key light not turning on, being a very naughty, naughty girl. So that's fucking fun, and I fiddled with that for 30 minutes watching YouTube tutorials and asking fucking ChatGPT, and had to eventually just settle on a workaround, using the Elgato, what's it even called? Control Center app on my phone, which of course worked flawlessly. Just doesn't want to work on my computer. Yes. So that's amazing. I love that so much for me. Light doesn't want to work. Finally get it to work. I sat down to do this stream an hour ago. I went to the gym, went to the grocery store, came home, made some food, had a shower, and said, okay, now it's time to stream. And I sat down. All right. Everything's on. Microphone, test, camera, good. Oh. That was an hour ago. So,
what you were about to witness.
To the makers of Elgato and Apple's Safari, fuck you. And also, let's figure it out, right? On the bright side, I want to thank and congratulate Angela Brown, who purchased a anti-pyramid phone case on Always Marco merch during the rage spiral I was going through, trying to set up this stream. That's very sweet. Thank you, and enjoy. Love the anti-pyramid phone case. We love it. We love it so much. So it was like me being like, fuck, why won't it work? Why won't it work? And then I see the Shopify notification. I'm like, aw. And then I go back, fuck. So that's good. What's up, everybody? Critter back in the chat. Long time no see, Critter. Ranked number 3 right now in terms of chat points, whatever that means. Viz Mayhem. Let's shout out to the members. You know, the members... Those are the VIPs right there. DTI, Starla, Devin Kelly. Welcome back, Devin. Long time no see. Wagwan to you. Spartan, thank you. Yes, I have a new video coming out with Julie Anderson as well that we filmed when we met in person a couple of weeks ago, actually. So that'll be exciting. I'm not sure if it's coming out on my channel or hers, but I have to still go through and edit it. By the way, if you want to be like Angela... you can go ahead and click the link that I just posted in the chat right now, alwaysmarcomerch.com, and you can use the code GOONS for a discount. Viz Mayhem, thank you so much for the Streamlabs donation. Is Jim Bob's question here in the room with us? I don't know. You've asked more questions than Jim Bob ever claimed to have in his head, so yeah, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for thumbs-upping the ting.
Thumbs up the
It's
ting.
totally free to click like on the stream. Helps support the channel, blah, blah, blah. M-Dub, what up? Yeah, we definitely need a hero. I need a hero. A hero to donate some memberships, give some memberships to other goons so we can get the chat green again. When the names in the chat aren't green, I feel naked. Which I know you guys like that, but I feel naked. El Gallo, so true, Specs. So true. Is there really a lawsuit, says Dan Snarsky. Dan, you must be new here. A lawsuit? Dan, I wish there was just a lawsuit. I wish I wasn't fighting multiple lawsuits in multiple countries from multiple multi-billion-dollar companies. Yes! But you know what? I've never lost a lawsuit thus far. And one thing that I've learned, especially not just from my own experience, but even through watching what's happening right now in the world. And we don't talk about Israel. But one thing that I've learned is that the truth costs nothing, and lies are very expensive. It costs a lot of money to protect a lie, to uphold a lie, to silence people who would expose the lie. Some of you might be familiar with a gentleman named James Randi, or the Amazing Randi, rest in peace. He was a magician. He's now passed. He was a magician who was famous most notably for exposing people who claim to have supernatural powers. One of those people is a man, a very famous supposed psychic and magician named Uri Geller. Happens to be Israeli, but totally besides the point. Don't notice any patterns. But James Randi had exposed Uri Geller far back in the 70s for not actually having psychic powers, supernatural abilities. Uri Geller had convinced many people, many intelligent people, that he had supernatural powers that he got from the planet Huba. Yes, Uri Geller claimed that he had psychic powers because of the planet Huba blessing him with them. And what was Uri Geller's claim to fame? This guy had one very famous trick where he would bend a spoon, where you'd see him rub a spoon and it would bend, and he would say, bend, bend, and then eventually the spoon would break, and it was, wow, he must really have powers. I mean, as though some supernatural cosmic being or planet would imbue somebody with powers just so they could do stupid gay little party tricks like bending spoons. And of course, it was revealed that Uri Geller's magic trick was nothing more than him preparing the spoons beforehand by bending them back and forth so that they already had some give to them, and then just basically finishing the job when it was time to perform. He was a fraud. He sued the Amazing Randi for libel, defamation, whatever, for daring to say that he didn't have supernatural powers. And that wasn't the only person he sued. He sued several people throughout his career. Uri Geller, I believe he's still alive. He's an old man now. But he became very famous and very rich from his deception. And it's sad because he could have just totally had a career as a magician. He could have just been a magician. Everybody knows magic's not real. But we don't call magicians frauds, just like we don't call wrestlers frauds, because it's fake. The acceptance comes in the form of transparency. If we were being deceived, that's when we take issue with it. That's why I take issue with multi-level marketing, because they promise one thing and they don't deliver on it. They lie. With Uri Geller, he never won, as far as I know, any of his lawsuits. He never made any substantial he was never successful in trying to silence the people that went against him. But I'm sure that it did, it definitely sent a message. You threaten people, you dissuade them from wanting to even pursue the claims against you just because maybe you have more money and you're going to drag them through the legal system. It's incredibly stressful. It's incredibly, you lose sleep over it. Lawsuits, they're not fun. My lawsuit stress has manifested in different ways over the last couple of years as I've lived with them. It's like having a chronic illness, like stress from lawsuits. First, 2 years ago, what it was my left eye would twitch uncontrollably to the point I would have to just close my eyes and wait for it to pass. Like I'd be editing and my left eye is twitching to the point that I can't even focus on what's on the screen because my eye is twitching. In the last year, that's shifted, so I don't have the eye problem as much. Now it's like a short-term memory thing, which I attribute this to the stress because it's the only thing I can point to. I forget things that happened very recently. Earlier this year, one of my friends at the gym was like, "You remember we went to that Lebanese restaurant a few weeks ago with Robert and John and blah blah blah?" And I was like, that never happened. You must have been there with someone else. Like, I haven't ever been there with those people. And then he pulls out his phone and shows me a photo of all of us there. And I was like, what the fuck? And it had only been maybe 2 months before. You know, it might have been less than 8 weeks before, and I had no recollection of it. So, yeah, it's definitely difficult. But what was the point that I was making about Uri Geller? Yeah, lies are very expensive. Uri Geller spent a lot of money, which, granted, he had the money. So, you know, if you have $1 billion, which he didn't, but I'm just making an example here. If you have $1 billion and it's going to cost you $200,000 to sue somebody, whether you win or lose, I mean, if you can afford to lose the $200,000, who cares? And if you're suing somebody who doesn't have $200,000 to lose, you can already see how the balance of power is in your favor, and why somebody who doesn't have the financial resources you do might be discouraged from pursuing that. I understand this, but I also sort of look at it as a silver lining that the truth is free. You know, I mentioned we don't talk about Israel or Geller, he's Israeli. What we see today, and what you can trace going back many years with the real life situation of Israel and their campaign known as Hasbara, Hasbara. This is their public relations, PR essentially campaign. I would call it a propaganda campaign, but this is basically where Israel puts together these trips for influencers to go and document their time in Israel and go to Israel and post about how great Israel is. I've seen Bobby Lee, the comedian, on a podcast explaining his eerie experience with an Israel trip that they, you get a call from your publicist one day and they say, you want to go to Israel? So somebody has invited you to Israel. They're going to put you up in this fancy hotel and you're going to do this and this and this and go on like a sort of North Korea style, structured tour with an Israeli guide or whatever. If only you would post about how awesome Israel is to all your followers. The Nelk Boys, who just recently had Netanyahu on their podcast, and we have to thank them for this awesome soundbite.
Hey, Marco, don't do this.
The Nelk Boys have a vlog from 2 years ago where they went to Israel, and it's just showing, oh yeah, they're partying, they're having fun. Israel is such a dope place. I mean, this is, make no mistake, this is Israeli propaganda, okay? And it's very expensive. It's very expensive. Lies are very expensive to proliferate and to uphold. And look at what happens to people who do criticize Israel. Bank account frozen, social media deleted, error message, ghost shadow banning, your story cannot be seen, your story contains graphic content, age warning, are you sure you want to see this content? Yes, it doesn't work, you refresh it, yes, finally it works. You're called an anti-Semite, you're a hateful person, what about Hamas, blah, 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 blah. And, it's the same strategies that are employed across all tyrannical regimes, I've noticed. I was so able to, once I started learning about Israel, I was so easily able to identify the strategies they were using because they're the exact strategies that people use in multi-level marketing. They have a fancy name for their official agencies which do something other than what they do. Example, the IDF. What is that? The Israeli Defense, right? Why defense? What are they defending against? They'd like you to believe that they're all constantly the victim, they're constantly being attacked, and that's why their force is called the Israeli Defense Force or whatever it's called. Even in I've talked about how in the U.S. it used to be called the Department of War before they changed it to the Department of Defense, because defense, defending yourself sounds like a lot better than waging war. Wouldn't you rather just be on the defense? Pyramid schemes call themselves multi-level marketing. The Direct Selling Association, the big pyramid bribery, apparatus is called the Direct Selling Association. It just goes on and on, it's never ending. So, but, as I said, lies are very expensive to uphold. The DSA has to lobby politicians, give millions and millions of dollars to politicians to get away with what they're doing. AIPAC has to spend millions and millions of dollars to continue doing what they're doing. And the truth is free, That's why it's, it just takes enough of us being brave and shouting the truth through all of the noise and all of the nonsense in order to make change. And I think, we're seeing it with geopolitics, like perhaps not with any current or in the near future administration, but what happens when the people, like what happens when us now get to the age where it's time for us to be like the politicians and the Congress people and whatever, right? I'm optimistic about that, because it's like, especially when it comes to multi-level marketing, it's like there's no way that in 30 years from now, the people who grew up watching viral videos about how MLMs are pyramid schemes, there's no way they're going to grow up and then get into politics and still support multi-level marketing, At least I like to think so. But then, of course, that's why they need bribery. That's why these lobbying organizations exist. They call it lobbying. That's another example. Bribery, lobbying. You just call it something different. Call it something different. Call it the opposite of what it is. Call what you're doing the opposite of what it is. MLMs don't scam people and destroy relationships. No, they empower people to have financial freedom and time freedom. And you're not being ostracized from your friends and family. You're cutting off the negative thinkers and the suppressive people. It's just madness. Okay, let me read some of your comments. Effective One, I'm just scrolling back to the most recent comments. Effective One says, "Bro, are you trying to turn this into a stream of your political opinions? Starting to get annoying. Noticing a trend on every live stream as of recent." Effective One, I think this is another example of when you try to say the truth, you get back noise. Okay? First of all, I never said a political opinion whatsoever. Is it a political opinion to say that Israel has a campaign of PR called Hasbara? No, it's just a fact. I didn't say whether it's bad or good. Did I say that did I say anything that was not purely a statement of fact? Is it not true that Israel calls what they're doing good when it's evil? It's not a political opinion. It's just a factual, objective pointing out the obvious. So, and I'm drawing a parallel between multi-level marketing, a powerful apparatus that uses lies and lawsuits to suppress and silence the people who say the truth about it. And there's no more current, relatable, appropriate analogy to make than Israel. That's why. And it's a topic. I talked about James Randi and Uri Geller, and Uri Geller suing him. Uri Geller happens to be Israeli. I just have to suspect that I wouldn't get the same type of pushback if I was talking about, for example, another country doing it, which my radar goes off when I see that. And I don't view it as political whatsoever. We're witnessing what is potentially the darkest chapter in human history when it comes to assaults on humanity and freedom and goodness with the genocide that's being committed. And, for a long time I said, I'm not going to even learn about this. I don't want to, I can't save the world. I'm just doing my part, blah, blah, blah. But it's just become, over the last 2 years, such an inescapable, unavoidable thing to see the images of the people and the geography and how it's been absolutely decimated. And the reason I say it's arguably the darkest chapter in human history is not because the death toll is higher. It's not because the human suffering is greater. It's because we're at a time now where the visibility is the highest. No one can claim ignorance about it. And we're living in a time where we have more than enough of everything, water, food, etc., so that no one person would have to starve. And we're witnessing children in a level 5 famine, which means that if you don't know what a level 5 famine means, it means that even if they get all the food they need today, the toll that has been taken on their bodies is so great that they will die anyways. And then when these kinds of lies are upheld by propaganda and lying, and Netanyahu going on a fucking Nelk Boys podcast, and they're asking him, what do you like better, McDonald's or Burger King? While the people who are the victims of this man are starving and have never had a McDonald's or a Burger King in their life, that is no more political than me talking about how the Direct Selling Association uses their ill-gotten gains from pyramid scheme companies to lobby politicians and destroy families and destroy lives and cause people to mortgage their homes and get divorced and kill themselves and not talk to their brother and sister or their best friend anymore. That is, I mean, of course, it's inescapable, the links. If we're talking about lobbying, what's lobbying? It's political money, you know, it's bribery for politicians. So I guess in that sense, you could say it's political. I don't view this as political at all. It is good and evil, you know. Some people have called me a libtard for pointing out the fact that Trump was the biggest spokesperson for the MLM company ACN, and that he had his own MLM company, the Trump Network, and that he made Betsy DeVos the Secretary of Education, and she's the wife of the head of Amway. Is that political? No, not inherently. But of course, you have to point it out because we're pointing out positions of power that evil people have found themselves in or have purchased their way into. So, yeah. You know, what should I say? Reading your guys' comments here. Jeff Miller says, stress is no joke. Make sure you're doing things to take care of yourself, Marco. Yeah, I think the best thing is like going to the gym, honestly. I've never really been a gym guy, and I hate the gym. But it makes me feel accomplished. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I've done something. Sometimes I brainwash myself to be like, I'll tell myself, like, if you don't go to the gym today, you're going to lose your lawsuit or whatever, you know? I just tell myself things. Let's see. Real estate consultant says, I am noticing a pattern in my tax dollars, right? Viz Mayhem says, my college offered many free trips to Israel. It was a week-long trip. I knew one person who went, and her and all her friends loved it. Go figure. Amazing. Yeah, the more you learn about it, the worse it gets, just like MLM. Vishu Murphy says, if Israel stops defending themselves for 30 minutes, they'd be wiped out. Can you blame them? I mean, you kind of can blame them when you're a colonizer state who only exists, who wouldn't exist if you didn't displace 700,000 people overnight back in 1948. Yeah, I can understand. Let me say, I can understand why the surrounding countries would be irked by that, for sure. And then when that land that you got is never enough, and your book from 3,000 years ago promised that it's okay to, you know, expand by any means necessary and steal people's homes in the middle of the night, and you know, more learning about the topic will certainly help you to sift through those questions. What up, Grace? Grace at the JOB. Yeah, MLMs empower women. Of course, it's the opposite. Dave's doublespeak. Stand on business. Marco, I know this is your channel, but can you please keep your thoughts and opinions to yourself? Yes. And it's appropriate that we're talking about this because we're going to look at some of the bookmarks I have in this book, Freedom of Mind. I've especially been getting questions from people in an increased frequency asking about what should I say to my friend or relative. So as you might have heard from me talking on a recent stream, I'm putting together a free guide which takes what is in my opinion the most helpful information from that I've learned from my experiences exposing MLM, talking to experts, reading books from the professionals. And so I thought we could go through some of those today, and we'll see if there's anything that I haven't yet added to the guide that would be helpful. And both of these things, multi-level marketing, once I explain why they are cults, people usually accept that. I think also, you know, we see cultic thinking with the other topic that I was talking about. So forgive me, I'm not trying to shoehorn in geopolitics. I'm just drawing analogies that I feel are appropriate to the current events of today. I hate genocide equals political opinion. Yeah. I was going to say something else too related to lawsuits. Maybe it was something about how I've never lost. I don't know. Viz Mayhem says, I think there's something so poetic that McDonald's provides free meals to the IDF, yet Netanyahu says his favorite is Burger King. It's almost like
Galito Vargas donated 13 Canadian dollars and 74 cents. Do you like me?
Do you like me?
Yes, I do. I certainly do. Thank you. Thank you, Galito, and thank you, Burger Baron. Is there a Venn diagram between MLM and APAC? Not as far as I know, but it's worth looking into. There are certainly overlaps with, not APAC specifically, but there are certainly overlaps with characters in both topics. For example, I was thinking about one today, Bill Ackman. A lot of you might have heard of Bill Ackman recently, billionaire, hedge fund manager, also happens to be Jewish, is very supportive of Israel, and was one of the people who said that he would no longer support certain universities financially if they didn't do something to dismantle and stop the encampments that were happening for people protesting about the ongoings in Gaza. It's interesting because Bill Ackman, while being so clearly on the wrong side of history on that issue, is ironically, in my opinion, a very important positive figure in the world of multi-level marketing. If you're not aware, I'm sure we did a Discord movie night on this a year ago where we watched Betting on Zero, the documentary which features people you've seen on my channel before, like Doug Brooks, Robert Fitzpatrick, Bill Keep, and Bill Ackman. The documentary Betting on Zero is about Bill Ackman's short position against Herbalife stock that they would go to zero based on his public report and campaign to expose that they were in fact an illegal pyramid scheme. It's very interesting. Bill Ackman, basically, when you buy stocks, you buy a stock because you hope it's going to go up in value from where you bought it from, and that's how you make money. There's also the reverse of that, where you can bet money that a stock is going to go down, and you can make money off that. So that's called shorting. So Bill Ackman shorted the stock and stood to make, I believe it was $1 billion. It was $1 billion short position. He purchased basically, anyways, you get the idea. So after he did this, there was a huge campaign from Herbalife to shut Bill Ackman up and push the opposite message. And one of the key voices in this show was Carl Icahn, another Jewish billionaire investor guy, who later actually became the special advisor to Donald Trump in the first Trump administration, funnily enough. And the story became more about their personal rivalry, and they used every excuse in the book to try to explain away why Bill Ackman was doing it. And rather than them saying that he's trying to expose the truth and help people to not be scammed by Herbalife, they said, oh, well, he's only doing this to make money because, of course, he did stand to make $1 billion if Herbalife stock went to zero. But Bill Ackman said that he would donate all the money anyways. So it just became this whole thing, this whole charade, where, of course, in my opinion, Bill Ackman was correct. Bill Ackman did a huge presentation for the media where it was like undercover camera investigation mixed with like analysis of Herbalife's reports and their business model and their practices and on and on and on and on and on. And ultimately, Herbalife stock did not go to zero. Carl Icahn purchased shares after Bill Ackman went public with his accusation to try to plummet the stock. Carl Icahn went out publicly and was talking about how amazing Herbalife was. It's a great company and it's a great product and we love it and blah, blah. And he bought shares so that the stock price would go back up. And ultimately, this culminated in an FTC investigation and lawsuit, which was settled. And it's, as far as if I recall correctly, the biggest FTC settlement in history, $300 million, and a restructuring of Herbalife's business practices and promises to not operate the way they were operating. However, they were able to not admit any wrongdoing or be classified as a pyramid scheme. All of this happened under the not so watchful eye of then Attorney General, or was she the governor, Kamala Harris in 2016. So it's all connected. I have a video on my channel called "When Presidents Promote Pyramids," and yeah, it's all connected. It's you know, it's a lot. It's a lot. You realize actually that it's a very apolitical issue. People on both sides, you know, you hear about like Epstein, Bill Clinton and Trump photographed with him, right? Obviously diametrically opposed politically. And with MLM, it's similar. Bill Clinton did a video that I'm sure I included it in that president's video that I just mentioned, where he talks about direct selling and how amazing an opportunity it is. And, you know, there was Kamala Harris and her opportunity to do something about Herbalife, which she didn't do. People have speculated as to why that is. Some have also brought up how at the time that it was up to Kamala Harris to do something or not do something about Herbalife, her husband, Doug Emhoff, was a lawyer at the law firm Venable, one of whose clients was Herbalife. So, and of course, then Trump, you know, handsomely paid by ACN, made Betsy DeVos Secretary of Education. You know, what does the woman who is the first lady of Amway know about education? You know, so it's all connected. It's a very apolitical issue. I actually think that whether you're all the way right-wing capitalist or you're all the way left-wing socialist, I actually think that a unifying enemy between both of those ideologies would be multi-level marketing, because they take the most golden promises of both of those politics and merge them into a big lie that satisfies neither. You know, if you're someone who believes in actual merit-based capitalism, where you think that the person who makes the best product or provides the best service deserves to make the most money, you should be heavily insulted by multi-level marketing, because it's a rigged game where, as Doug Brooks says, it's like buying a lottery ticket for a lottery where the winners have already been chosen. It doesn't matter about your level of work ethic or effort, you will lose. And likewise, if you're a socialist and you think everyone should be treated equally and wealth should be dispersed equally, you should be equally as offended at the fact that it's less than 1% of people in MLMs that are actually hoarding all of the wealth. So, yeah, you know, it's very apolitical, effective one. Bad Dog says, nobody likes going to the gym. Seriously, it's great for stress and anxiety. So true. Marco just bookmarked the whole book. No, I promise I didn't. Burger Baron, what up? Appreciate you. Appreciate the support. If you guys want to support, Streamlabs link in the chat, of course. Thank you guys. Viz Mayhem says, he was a Jewish doctor, Kanye voice. Where's the Kanye sound effect I have? I have one on here.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Jeff Miller says, Discord movie night. I'm going to have to re-download Discord. Yeah, I haven't done one in a while, but yeah. Jim Bob says, Marco, I'm pro-Israel. I have a question about Israel. What up, Jim Bob? Chase Sanders here tonight. There are 2 3-hour presentations you can find here on YouTube easily, and every moment is disgusting. Bad Dog Benjamin refers to the Bill Ackman presentation. Yes. What up, T Doyle? She says, I've not been following Marco much, but Ish is messed up AF right now. It's almost too much corruption to give my energy to, but I appreciate your hustle. Thank you, T Doyle. Specs dropping bars. He says, a lie once told remains a lie, but a lie told 1,000 times becomes the truth. Bars. Super bars. I'm going to give it.
Bars.
Yep. Quite literally in bed with Herbalife, yes. Chris says, I stay morally righteous and poor. Oh, I relate to that. Boy, do I relate to that. What up, Alex? Alex, Wagwan, Alex. When you see Alex there,
ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
When you see Alex in there, put some respect on his name, you know?
Yeah, girl, I'm out here in these streets.
Kamala Harris, you shouldn't have been out there in them streets. You should have been out there fucking doing something about Herbalife.
She belongs to the streets.
Okay, let's look at this book, shall we? Let's look at this book. So, people have been asking me, what do I say to a friend or loved one who's in MLM? Let's just go. I think I've made close to 20 bookmarks in this book. Let's start. I'm actually, because I'm a genius, you know what I've done is I also have a PDF copy that I found online of the book pulled up so that I can actually put it up on screen what I'm looking at and show you guys exactly the page that I'm referring to, because I feel like it's going to be boring and hard to follow if I'm just reading it. So I'm going to instead actually show you what it is I'm reading so that you can see for yourself. So that you can absolutely see for yourself. And I'll make me smaller. Here, let's just do this. Why don't we do this? Screen capture. And why don't we take Marco and shrink him down? Why don't we do that? Beautiful. Okay, so let's look at this book. All right. I'm going to start with... Let's start here. Let's start here. All right, here we go. I'm going to start here. I have this circled in my I have this highlighted in my copy of the book. Can we see this? Okay. Cults are on the rise for many reasons. Cults are on the rise for many reasons. Among the most fundamental is the breakdown of families and communities and the growing sense that our society is in disarray. Economic factors play a role. A large and growing segment of the world's population is poor, while a relatively small elite controls an ever-increasing share of the world's resources. More people have been uprooted, even in the United States. Whereas once a person could expect to spend their entire life within a 5-mile radius of their birthplace, today it's not unusual for people to relocate halfway around the globe. As people become disenchanted and separated from the culture that nurtured them, they seek answers in fringe groups of all types, from fanatical religious sects to militia groups. And of course, multi-level marketing, let's not forget that. All right, so what a great place to start. Why do people get into cults? Well, disenchanted and separated from the culture that nurtured them, they seek answers in fringe groups of all types, from fanatical religions to militia groups. I mean, isn't that so fundamental? Seeking answers. Isn't this... I just got a message today about, in regards to my short that I posted, about my friend, my high school best friend who was in World Financial Group, but before that was in Amway. Somebody replied to that in a DM telling me, as a matter of fact, I can read you the exact DM so that I don't misquote them. He says, they teach you not to send any info until you have had an in-person meeting with them. This is referring to Amway. During the meeting, try to figure out what they want in life and show them how they can achieve it with this new business. They will do anything to not tell you what they do at first. They want to know your weaknesses. I think back now to my multi-level misery with Angelo, who talked about how the guy that approached him for Amway first started by asking him what he wants out of life and what does he want his future to look like and blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's exactly it. You're catering to what people tell you they want, and then you're sort of bending the thing you do around that to make it seem like, oh yeah, well, this is a way to get that, which is, of course, a lie. Moving on to... Here, just on the bottom of the page, he says, if you Google the word cult, you may find yourself in an Alice in Wonderland world where nothing is as it seems to be. Here's one example. For many years, the nonprofit Cult Awareness Network was a grassroots organization providing information and support to people with loved ones in cults. In 1996, the name, logo, and phone number were purchased by a member of the Church of Scientology in federal bankruptcy court. Their confidential files were turned over to Scientology. So if you contact this so-called anti-cult organization, you'll reach someone from one of the largest and most organized international cults. Isn't that just absolutely fucking shocking? And this is, by the way, we're in the intro of the book. This isn't even like chapter 1. This is page XIX. It's not even page 1. It's like it's the pre-joint, So, yeah, and as a matter of fact, we can check that out. Can Cult Awareness Network. If we search that up, we will be able to actually verify what Dr. Hassan is talking about. Cult Awareness Network. Here we go. Was a nonprofit organization, blah, 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 founded by Ted Patrick. Does it not exist anymore? Cult Education Institute. Oh, Scientology's takeover. Okay, well that's good. That's good. But I mean, what the hell, right? MLM is the front porch of the rabbit hole. Yes. David Eisen says, I own a travel agency and we have a ton of MLMs in our industry, or MLM light. Right. Why has no one ever focused on them? I don't know. I'm sure I've talked to people who have been in them, but I'm sure I'll do a multi-level misery interview with somebody someday. John says, has anyone had a spouse who did MLM behind your back? My wife did IM Academy for 2 years, then left me when I found out. Fucking cult. Yes. Always appreciate you sharing, John Reardon. Always wishing you the best, man. Viz Mayhem says, internet allows people who would never have otherwise connected to link and spread bullshit. Those Forex TikToks were going crazy during COVID. So true. David says, not them. Billionaires love poor people. They give us jobs. They feed us. We need to be grateful for the 1%. What would we be without them? Absolutely. So true.
Because you'd be in jail. Billions and billions. So, baby, how good was that?
Benjamin says, my ex bought into rainbow vacuums. By the way, if you want to take notes on this, you can definitely get yourself a write this down notebook from alwaysmarcomerch.com, designed by the one and only Devin Kelly. Shout out Devin in the chat. Love that design. Write this down. Beautiful pages. You can also book a one-on-one call with Always Marco. You love to see it if you want help applying these strategies to your own situation. All right, let's continue on, shall we? Here we go. I'm going to pull up the next section. Common characteristics. Here we go. All right. Wow, this is actually super convenient that I can follow on screen the bookmarks that I have in the book. All righty, here we go. This page shows us common characteristics of cults. Ready? Manipulation, deception, dependency and isolation. All other churches are dead and unspiritual. Compared to us, you're isolating yourself as the solution and you're excluding everything else. Demanding a 1-over-1 discipling relationship. Recruit turns his back on all his friends, spending more time with the guru/group. Meetings are secret. Cult member moves into the group's headquarters. This is extreme. The cult member refuses to respond to letters and phone calls. The family member doesn't know where their loved one is. Psychological blackmail, threatening prophecies. That one you might think is only exclusive to the mystical religious cults, but actually, in MLM, I can think of a great example. In my WFG Part 3 video, we see evil scammer Greg Stranatka talking about, have you ever interviewed your future? Where do you think you'll be in 15 years when blah, blah, blah? Of course, he's just simply fear-mongering about the idea that you'll never be able to advance through the ranks of whatever company you work at. You'll never get a promotion. You'll never get paid enough. You're always going to be broke, blah, 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 unless give me $500 and join my MLM. Cult leader or leadership asks for money and property. Guru demands to have sex with a member. Sounds like an Always Marco live stream. Just playing. Creation of the pseudo-cult identity. I don't recognize my own bright, warm, loving son. Like with my best friend from high school, I didn't recognize him when his eyes were bulging out of his head and he said, so when are you going to sign up to WFG? Guru tries to control members' behaviors, thoughts, and emotions, just like my friend from high school. You're just like everyone else. You don't believe in me. They told me you would say that, etc. The cult member is like an actor who comes to believe the role is reality. It's like they say, fake it till you make it, dress for the job you want. Again, spinning what sounds good, but of course is nothing but pure evil. All right, let me see what I want to jump to next. All right, let me skip ahead here a bit. This is a part that that I think is helpful to read because it talks more about that fear mongering. After the love and idealism, love bombing, the cult world fills with fear. Fear that the planet will explode, fear of nuclear holocaust, fear that he will lose his spiritual connection, will be severed, fear of possession by the devil. Fear binds members to the group. Members become paranoid or phobic. Yeah, I mean, I've talked at length before about the Heaven's Gate cult who all committed suicide because they believed that was the only way to like escape the apocalypse or whatever the fuck they believed. And then we go on to talking about the BITE model, of course, behavior, information, thought, emotion. This is, of course, the BITE model. Here we go. 3 stages. Okay, it looks like this online version is a little bit different than the version of the book that I have. Oh no, I'm actually just a little bit behind. Okay. Let me move on here. Okay, here we go. This was a good part. Lifton's 8 points. Shout out Lifton. Is he still alive? Lifton's 8. Here we go. Lifton's 8 points. Here they are. Fundamentals of destructive and social influence outlined. Milieu control, mystical manipulation, demand for purity, the cult of confession, sacred science, loading the language, doctrine over person, dispensing of existence. I mean, we can go through all of these, but you can think in your own mind how MLM applies these, mystical manipulation, the secret, the law of attraction, nonsense like that. The cult of confession is a powerful one, getting you to overshare. I know Julie Anderson has talked about this where she would do her daily Facebook live streams when she was in Monate, just oversharing. And of course, that gives people, that gives your superiors in the cult power over you. If they say things like, what's your goal? Oh, you want to retire your mom? Okay, if you're ever not moving the way that you need to be successful, do you have my permission to hold you accountable? AKA, do you have my permission to blackmail you? It's just double speak. Do you have my permission to emotionally manipulate you and say things like, oh, so you don't care about your mom? Oh, bro, you're not going to come to the event tomorrow because it's Mother's Day? Well, I'm working every day so that every day can be my mom's Mother's Day. Of course, just totally bastardizing any sense of, balance to an individual's life. You're not supposed to have a balanced work-life balance, God forbid. They'll just make you feel bad for not dedicating all of your time to the cult. And what's sad is that the people in cults often think that they're doing the right thing, like it spreads like a cancer. No one who's in a cult thinks they're in a cult. It's only the people at the top who orchestrate things, who are actually sadistically enjoying and knowing what they're doing. That's why I say most people in MLMs are not stupid. They're victims. Their only thing they're guilty of is trusting a friend. Okay, here we go. This is let's get on to the how we can help friends and loved ones. Okay. Necessary beliefs. Here we go. We need to believe. Okay, so basically, Steve Hassan gives an overview about strategic interactive approach. This is sort of his method for getting people out of cults. The focus of the strategic interactive approach is on the growth of the family and support networks as well as the cult member. Family and friends are asked to participate in each step of the process, improving their communication skills and enhancing self-awareness. Team members are given tools to attend to their own emotional needs and overcome problems such as phobias or addiction. When each family member is responsible for growth and change, the cult member's perspective changes. Instead of, I'm a victim, everyone is here to help me, it becomes, we're a family and everyone is growing and learning. The necessary beliefs we need to have are, destructive influence is never 100% because it cannot erase a person's authentic self. No matter how suppressive, no matter how controlling, abusive, and manipulative a cult is, it will never and can never actually erase someone's mind pre-cult. There will always be memories of their childhood. There will always be memories of the people who truly cared about them. There will always be an authentic self, even if it's suppressed, even if it's like, you know, in the movie Get Out, where they go into the sunken place, you know, and you know, his real self is like floating in the black void in the abyss. It's like that. At least I think that's a good visualizer for it. But it's not irreversible. 2, the individual will leave the group. It's only a matter of how soon and how easily. This is an important and necessary belief to have. You cannot think, oh, it's hopeless. You know, even people who say, oh, he's got to learn the hard way. I have a new multi-level misery episode that I filmed with a gentleman who was in 2 different MLMs. And he talks about how even after his experience was done, because he didn't know how to get someone else out, he just got out because he had kind of witnessed the same nonsense over and over. When he talks about after he left, he had a cousin who joined, and he knew what it was, but she didn't know what it was. And instead of like trying to talk to her about it, he was like, she's just got to figure it out for herself. She's got to learn the hard way, which I think we can do better than letting people learn the hard way. But I also agree that even if people learn the hard way, they will learn eventually. Ideally, though, they learn the easy way, and even more ideally, they don't get involved in the cult to begin with. Real love is stronger than conditional love. You know, the family, the friends, the relationships that you have with people who really care about you, in most cases, I think will still be there after somebody leaves a cult. And if you want to see conditional love, look no further than the teammates and the uplines in MLM. You know, I think to my multi-level misery episode with Stefan and Jenna, who were in Amway for 13 years, talking about how they had such a close relationship with their uplines. You know, they were always like spending time together. Their kids were friends, etc. And then how they felt so discarded at a time of need, you know, and how they felt so unappreciated and you know, they just had all of their loyalty and love thrown back in their face, which showed that it was conditional. It's not unconditional. People in MLMs love to say, you know, I remember in IM Academy, there was one guy who was on some live video talking about how, oh yeah, people say that we're this and that I was wrong to cut off my friend, but you know what? You betrayed me first because we were supposed to be in this together and blah, 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 blah. You know, that's not real love, you know. That's not real love. People want to be free and to know the truth. That's true. Everything in life can be used as a learning experience. That's true. Cult behavior is predictable. So true. Cults don't deliver what they promise. Change and growth are inevitable. Yes, 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 and yes. Screenshot this, write this down, do whatever you got to do. Now, even more important than the necessary beliefs, in my opinion, are the necessary attitudes. I've told people time and time again, what you should not do is go into a discussion or an argument or a debate with someone who's in an MLM or in any cult for that matter and start trying to argue facts with them. That's not the way. What we need to do is to be curious yet concerned. Be a good listener. Show that you know you don't know everything. Act within your sphere of control. Don't waste your emotions on things you can't change. Strive for gradual, cumulative progress. Don't just go for the knockout punch. Don't say, this is a pyramid scheme and a cult. That's an example of going to a knockout punch. Okay? Work to improve your communication skills. Do the best you can with the resources you have. I will even build on this a little bit. Never use a you statement when talking to someone who's in a cult. Always use an I statement. It's always about, I am trying to learn more. I am confused about this. I would like more clarity on that. I want you to explain how this system works. Please, I want to understand better what the income disclosure is. I want to understand how the 5 people recruiting 5 people works. Never make it about the other person. Never make it, you can't explain this, or why don't you explain, but never put them on the spot. This should be something that we are discovering together. You've come to me wanting me to join Amway or Scientology or whatever it is. I want to support you, and I want to build something great with you because we're friends or we're siblings or whatever. I just want to make sure that it's the best decision, not just for me, but also for you, because I care about you. All I statements. It's all about what your intent is, okay? Why don't we work together to understand this? This is empowering people to think for themselves, okay? Not arguing with people, but giving them the information and the tools and asking the right questions to get them to think on their own, okay? Goal-oriented communication. Let's see how we do this. We build rapport and trust. Gather information about the pre-cult self, the cult self, and the authentic self. Before you joined this, what were you working towards? Oh, I was in university for blah, blah, blah. When you were a kid, what did you want to do? What was your dream job? I guarantee you they're not going to say Amway. They're not going to say they wanted to be an operating Thetan level 7 in Scientology. They're not going to say they wanted to be a senior marketing executive vice president director of World Financial Group. Okay? Plant seeds of doubt that may get the member to question his involvement. Use mini interactions that will help motivate the cult member to leave, rather than one big sit down when you have the file folder and it's like a lawsuit where you're like, all right, one iteration, more than one discussion. Okay? Let me see you guys' comments real quick. Food Plus, what up? Appreciate you. That dope shift says Northgate Mall, Edmonton is where you find the MLM schemers looking for the clueless. That's a shame. Super haram. Tretino, what up? T. Doyle says, go to Clearwater once as a lone woman. It's weird AF. All the stores are closed. Okay. Slurpees with a nice statement. They say, when someone feels like they have no control or understanding, a cult offers a false sense of control, or at least the idea that you now possess special knowledge, instantly elevating them above peers. So true. Since no one has asked on the stream, where's Dale and why isn't he trying to sell me collectibles? So funny. Jim Bob, the real cult is anti-MLM. So funny. Jim Bob making 2 fake Instagram accounts and a ghost TikTok account to try to message me and say that I'm a hypocrite or something. What are you talking about? T. Doyle says, you're in Alberta, right? Yes. Seems way cult heavier than here. I went to Clearwater one time and the Sea Org was all over me. Oh, wow. Crazy. Mike is cutting in and out. Test, test. Test, test. Okay. I hear myself. All right. Happening with the soundboard too. Alberta, right? Yes. Seems way cult heavier than here. I went to Clearwater one. I'm being assassinated. We're being attacked. Say when someone feels like they have no control or understanding, a cult offers a false sense of. Okay, well, I'm gonna I'm going to keep an eye on it, or an ear on it, rather. I'm monitoring now on my own headphones, so hopefully it's okay. Could have also been the connection. You guys keep me posted in the chat. Am I good now? Am I good as I'm talking right here? Marco would never kill himself, so true. There are many cults, smaller groups, 100 people, 30 inner circle. Okay. Let's hope it works. Still happening. What? Being attacked. Okay, well, I'm gonna keep an eye on it, or an ear on it, rather. I'm monitoring now on my own headphones, so hopefully it's okay. Could have also been the connection. You guys keep me posted in the chat. Am I good now? Am I good as I'm talking right here? Marco would never kill himself. I mean, it looks fine for me. I'm literally watching the replay from 30 seconds ago on my phone, and it looks fine. You know? Fuck it, we'll do it live. Okay. Okay, here. He gives us some tangible examples. Here we go. Steve Hassan gives us some examples here. Have heard of Quickstar, of course. Big gap in audio. Smaller groups, 100 people, 30 inner circle. Yeah. I'm not sure, bro. Y'all let me know. Still doing it. Okay. I don't know. Refresh it. Maybe refresh it. I'm looking at the OBS, and it's like connection looks good. No lag. My mouth is moving to the words. I think you guys might have to just rewind or refresh, or I don't know. I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. Team members learn to interact with each other in a positive fashion. If one person says something hurtful, I encourage the individual who is hurt to suggest a more constructive response. Each interaction is an opportunity to assess what does and doesn't work. You gain understanding by role-playing. This is more for a group approach. For instance, I asked a cult member's mother to pretend she was her daughter. Stephen Hassan to the mother. If you heard your mother say, "You're going out dressed like that," how would you feel? Mother. I guess I would think my mother was criticizing the way I looked. Steve Hassan said, "That's what you would think. How would you feel? Would the comment make you feel good or about yourself or your mother?" No, of course not. Okay, got it. Alex says, rebooted my YouTube and everything is better. Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. We love technical difficulties. Okay, this is my favorite part of the book, is that each chapter has a summary. Here we go. Fundamentals, blah, blah, blah. Whoops. Here we go. What makes a person vulnerable to cults? This is the first. Oh, I heard a little pop and click right there. What makes a person vulnerable to cults? A lack of awareness about cults and destructive influence. You can't spot something if you don't know what to look for. Situations where a person is facing stress or major disappointment. I've talked about this before. Why is it that everybody who joins an MLM joins at the worst moment in their life when they're vulnerable and desperate, not when everything is going great? Psychology. All of us are susceptible to social influence. Individuals who are not prone to critical thinking are easier targets. Those who seek approval are more vulnerable. Individuals with good concentration and vivid imaginations are more susceptible to hypnotic suggestion. Huge bars. Huge bars. People with mental or physical handicaps may be more easily drawn in, but cults want people who will be assets without burdens. Cult members have a pre-cult and a cult identity that need to be understood. Each cult needs to be evaluated to understand its leadership, organization, and doctrine. Your concerns play an important role in planning how to approach your loved one. It is crucial to understand what you think and feel. Okay. Great. Moving on. We've already burned through like half of these bookmarks, so I hope this is helpful so far. Okay. Going to the next summary that I want to look at. Here we go. It may seem the cult has a great advantage in terms of money and manpower, but your loved one is of special importance to you. The cult leaders will not care about the person the way you do. A strategic, interactive approach team, once set in motion, can quickly evolve. With education and encouragement, individuals may become effective members of the team. This is more of a team approach, but here's some of the beliefs, okay? These are beliefs that you might hear from people. Like, for example, you have a sibling who's in an MLM. You're going to hear this type of stuff from other people around them in their life who, I mean, I would say don't care as much. You may disagree with that after we read these, but these are not helpful things. So if you're going to try to do some sort of family intervention type shit, I would try to do so very carefully while considering first talking to the people around that person or who you trust, and seeing if any of them say stuff like this before you make that choice, okay? There's no such thing as mind control. People who reject out of hand the existence of destructive influence usually have distorted conceptions about its techniques. Probably not a good person to have on your team if they don't believe in mind control. 2, everything is mind control. This is one that I've actually heard from people in MLMs where they try to equate the deceptive claims made by people in MLMs to the deceptive claims made in advertising. And of course, this doesn't address the fact that both are wrong. Deceptive advertising or lying in MLM, both are wrong. You know, 2 wrongs don't make a right, as they say. But usually, like, think about a commercial like Axe body spray. Remember those commercials where it's like the guy would spray Axe body spray on himself and all the girls come running after him? It's so fantastical that I don't think anyone would actually look at that as like deception, because what happened to my elbow? Because it's so obviously fantasy. You know, I think that is an important distinction too, is that you can tell that it's a joke, that you can tell that it's fantasy. YouTube wanted us to refresh it so it could play an ad again. So true. Spec says, try clicking this if you're still having trouble. And it's my Streamlabs, of course. 84 people watching and only 60 likes. Make it make sense.
Thumbs up the ting.
Thumbs up the ting indeed, you guys. Come on. Okay. What up, dead poop? Why should I do anything? He says he's happy. Even if a cult member says that he is happy, be aware that in a cult, happiness is often redefined as sacrifice or suffering. So true. He's an adult. We have no right to interfere. Under hypnosis, a person can be age-regressed to childhood. The individual thinks, feels, and acts like a child. Once the cult member has an opportunity to learn about and recognize the features of destructive cults and meet with former members and critics, he will be in a position to make an informed choice. This is true. MLMs and other cults are mentally debilitating. They are a mental affliction. He has the right to believe what he wants to believe. When people in a controlled environment are subjected to psychosocial influences like group conformity or behavior modification techniques, they can be manipulated into accepting a completely different belief system. So true. He's too intelligent to join a cult. Many people have a hard time believing that bright, talented people, often educated and from good homes, could fall under the control of a cult, but they do. He must be weak or looking for easy answers. He needs someone to tell him what to do. This is very commonly held but fallacious and generalization about cult members. She's better off where she is. A cult may provide temporary shelter from traumatic circumstances, but cult involvement doesn't cure anyone's problems. It substitutes unethical practices for legitimate help. He'll leave on his own when he's ready. This attitude presumes that the cult member has the resources and ability to leave. This, by the way, applies not just to cults, but coercive control in general, like someone who's in an abusive relationship. We've all heard, well, why didn't she leave? Not always so simple. We've lost hope. Negative beliefs can become self-fulfilling. Many loved ones will inevitably leave the cult. Appreciate you, tough leader. Marshall Villager. Street epistemology. Yeah, I've seen a couple of those videos. It's quite interesting. I don't know too much about it. Okay. Moving on. Where you can start To do. Research the cult beliefs and practices. See what they preach. In MLM, this is usually prosperity gospel nonsense. Manifesting the future Lamborghini you want to drive, printing out a picture of it and hanging it up and looking at it and saying affirmations in the mirror when you wake up and when you go to sleep, blah, 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 blah. Make a list of probable cult triggers. Check your list with former members. Make a list of loaded language, words, and phrases. I mean, these are almost innumerable. They're almost too many to count in MLM. Compensation plan is double speak, because how do you call it a compensation plan when nary anybody makes any compensation whatsoever? It's actually a financial trap that they're calling a compensation plan when actually it's a, what's the opposite of compensation? It's a loss plan. It's a plan to make people lose money. Let me move me over here a little bit. Okay. The first goal is to build rapport and trust, not to argue and prove points. Not to argue and prove points. Talk about the glassy-eyed stare. Talked about that in my unicity video. Okay, here we go. Here we go. As I've said, cult members... Here we go. Here it is. Cult members suffer from a dissociative disorder or dual identities, which causes them to vacillate between an authentic identity and a cult identity. When dealing with a cult member, be sensitive to the differences between the two identities. Big bar. Big bar. Indoctrination anchors itself to parts of our past, our forgotten, outgrown, or discarded authentic self. Elements of pre-cult identity are the seeds of its formation. Instead of waiting for brief encounters with the authentic identity, you can seek harmony and trust with the cult identity and enlist its positive qualities, like dedication and idealism, to help liberate the authentic identity. So, using some of the attitude that they have as a current cult member who's involved to stir or stoke their memory about their pre-cult identity, what they wanted out of life, who they were, etc. I feel like I should play some calming background music while we do this. What do you think? Would that be better? I think it could be quite nice, actually. Let's see if I can find a here. Mood, calm. Let's find some calm music. And what genre should we choose? Let's see, ambient, perhaps? Perhaps some jazz? Yeah, let's see. Do we hear this? Oh, no, I have to change that. Okay, here we go. Ooh, okay. It's about to go down. Hold up. Wait. I got you. Wait. Let me choose a different sound here. Nope. All right, let's go to the jazz. Too much. Too much. Ooh. Who's that? Who is that? I want to just like some piano type shit. Give me some piano. This is too sexy. This is too sexy, though. Oh, classical. I'm using the YouTube audio library so I don't get hit with a copyright, blah, blah, blah. Woo! Wow. Ooh. Can we hear it? Is that alright? Is that alright right there? It's quite nice, actually. Ooh. Let me see how it sounds on here. Okay. Can we hear it? It's too quiet? Oh, that's perfect right there. That's absolutely perfect. Too sexy. Okay. Deadpool, what up? Decomposition plan, so true. Decomposition instead of composition. Devin says, quote, she will leave when she's ready, except the longer she's in, the lesser the opportunities to leave. So true. So true. So fucking true. 27-hour lo-fi studying music, true. Okay. Let's move on. Whoops, wrong thing. Here we are. Okay, here's what I was reading. Okay, here we go. Instead of waiting for brief encounters, blah, 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 we want to liberate the authentic identity. Rather than discarding the entire cult identity, we attempt to create a new post-cult identity that incorporates the most valuable and healthy parts of the pre-cult, cult, and authentic identities. Big bars. The best way to counteract thought stopping chanting, praying, and speaking in tongues is to avoid triggering them in the first place. Thought stopping occurs in direct response to what are perceived as negative comments. Be careful not to make remarks that are critical of the leader, the group, or the doctrine. Your loved one has been programmed to block this out. Use your own life experience or stories or examples about other groups, situations, and people, and ask the person what they think. This builds perspective. Show interest in the cult identity. Getting the cult member to talk about his experience provides an opportunity to build bridges. Reconnect the person to his or her past memories and experiences. Okay, this one I think is really important. Use your own life experience or examples to talk about other groups, situations, and people. This is especially easy with people who are in MLMs because there are so many MLMs, all of which use essentially the same disguise. They all have an endless chain. They are all pay to play. They all have an emphasis on recruiting, and they all have an extreme money transfer where most people lose money. You can find this easily. A lot of them will have some document on their website that shows their model or their compensation plan, where you can clearly see pyramid diagrams drawn. A lot of them have income disclosures available where you can type in the name of the company, income disclosure, and see that most people lose money, etc., etc. So I think rather than, and this happened to me in my own life as well. When I was in 2019, when I released my first video on World Financial Group, and that was kind of blowing up, a girl that I knew who was in Monate actually was a huge fan of the video, and she was gassing it up and sharing it and telling people about it. And she's like, "Oh, I showed it to my dad, and my dad thought it was so funny and so good," and blah blah. Meanwhile, she's in Monate, she's in an MLM herself, while praising my video about an MLM, and the video is called "Infiltrating a Pyramid Scheme," and she had not drawn the parallel. So she eventually blocked me when I posted something about Monate as well. But yeah, that's the cognitive dissonance. Everything else is a cult, but not my cult. So even if you do, I'm giving you fair warning, even if you do talk to the cult member that you're talking to about an adjacent cult, people in MLMs, they often call Amway Scamway, even though Amway is the precursor to what their thing is. Even if you do talk about something that's similar, same but different, they might not get it. Full warning. Okay. facilitate positive exposure to non-members, provide enhanced access to outside information, bring to consciousness the negative experiences the person has had in the group. So specifically the second one, provide enhanced access to outside information and facilitate positive exposure to non-members. With my best friend from high school, you've heard me say how he said, "You're just like everyone else. They told me you would say that. You don't believe in me." He was already primed to think this. So when I said, I looked online and it said it was a pyramid scheme, it was sort of a confirmation bias that he was in, where he had been warned that everyone else was a dream stealer and a negative Nancy. And when I said something about it being a pyramid scheme, it actually made him believe what his upline said even more, because they primed him for that, and they already had his rapport and trust. So when they told him, "Oh yeah, people are going to be negative about this, blah blah blah," and he trusts them, then when I say something negative, it's just it just makes him trust them even more. So that's a key, is to not say anything negative about their exact thing. Okay? By the way, I think this is like a super informative and helpful stream. Like, not to toot my own horn, but this is information that's going to go in a guide and be condensed for free. So, but of course, if you want more insight, definitely go read the book, Freedom of Mind. Pick up a copy of it. It's on Amazon. It's, there's an audiobook version available as well, I think. So yeah. Speaking of books, Robert Fitzpatrick just released a new book as well, which I just bought, and it's arriving in a couple of days. It's called, I forget the name of it, but search Robert Fitzpatrick on Amazon. He has a new book. Okay. Where am I here? Okay, here we go. Skipping quite far ahead. This is another set of concrete, helpful examples. Here we go. To do. Develop rapport and trust. Always start warmly and end warmly. To develop rapport with the cult identity, try participating in rapport-building activities. Sing songs, prepare food, wash dishes, dance, or pray together. These might sound silly, but these are examples, you want to do, even going out to eat, or go do an escape room, do something where they learn to work cooperatively with another person who's not in the cult. Negotiate with your loved one to find mutually acceptable solutions. This could be an example like the following bullet point. Bargain, I'll go to the meeting if you spend some time alone with me. I think this is only fair, since a lot of times people in MLM cults foster these fake, or they facilitate these fake interactions where, we know the example of like Nathan's girlfriend Julia trying to honeypot dudes by being like, "Oh yeah, let's go on a date," or giving them flirtatious vibes, making them think that she wants to sleep with them, and then they go over and it's just Nathan's penthouse ACN pitch meeting, Fuck both those people, by the way. Spec says, hold on. Devin says, thought stopping is so creepy. It's literally covering your ears and going, la la, I can't hear you. Yeah, it's just chanting it. Spec says, I'm surprised MLMs didn't try to use Home Shopping Network QVC as a means to funnel their products, but then tried to convert them once they were on the phone or something. I see. Yeah, well, I think Devin's follow-up comment is probably the most accurate. She says Spec's probably the same reason they don't buy TV ads. Buy ads, they'd have to pay for that TV spot. And yeah, Specs is correct. More regulations. Yeah, if you guys recall, nobody fucking watched this video, but if you recall, last year I did a video about Sylvester Stallone and his wife and the MLM that they launched back in the 2000s. And in that, I talk about an FTC lawsuit which implicates Jennifer, Sylvester Stallone's wife, about her and her partner making deceptive and unsubstantiated claims about their skincare. So I think it's much more highly regulated. TV, you're not going to see ads for vapes and cigarettes on television. And even with alcohol, I read an interesting thing. I think it was in the book Doublespeak that said anytime you see an alcohol commercial, the video cuts before they actually put the alcohol to their lips, because there's some regulation where you're not allowed to show people consuming alcohol in an advertisement. So they have people like holding it and dancing with it and smiling and whatever, and they'll show them going like this, but then before it actually shows them consuming it, it'll cut to like the logo or something like that. So I'm guessing that's probably a reason as well. What up, Roman? I actually don't read a lot. This is one of the few books I've read. Yeah, they love to talk about not buying advertising, like Nathan when he was like, we don't buy advertising. We let you guys be the promoters, and all that money that we save on advertising, we give back to you. Sounds so noble, doesn't it? But actually, that's not what it is at all. You would advertise if you had a legit sales business. Here's more things you can do. Invite your loved ones to specific events. Invite your loved ones' friends to visit. Review your communication strategies. Keep the records of the date, time, and subject of conversations. Record names of cult leaders and other members. When you learn new information, write this down. If you don't feel comfortable keeping a journal, buy yourself a small, this book is dating itself a bit. Make a voice memo. Yes. All bars here, Stephen. Okay. Here we go. This is one I like. This is a really helpful insight. 3-step phobia intervention. The 3-step phobia intervention is an effective way to unlock cult phobias. Unfounded fears are stripped of their power and seen for what they are, proof of the group's banal destructiveness. I've been teaching my clients and other mental health professionals this 3-step method for years, with great success. Although a trained therapist will have better success when implementing this approach, a well-prepared family member can do it as well. Often, one of the team members will stand out as the best choice for implementing the process. A once phobic family member who has been cured makes an especially effective interventionist. A family member who is a psychologist, social worker, or clergyman would also be in a good position to address these issues. In my experience, almost all cases of phobia are cured through visualization, suggestion, and experience. Most of the time, this method takes surprisingly little time. It can be summarized as follows. Step 1. The cult member is told what a phobia is and how it differs from a legitimate fear and its potential impact. Using examples of different phobias, you explain how a cure is possible. Think of an example in MLM, the phobia that they usually induce is thinking that you're going to be broke forever. You're going to be a loser forever. Step 2. This is not a rational fear. It's a phobia, of course. Step 2. You explain how other destructive groups or people deliberately install phobias to control people. You provide several examples of cult phobias. You could talk about Scientology, how people in Scientology, they sign a 1 billion year contract because they have a fear that the millions of microorganisms in their body called thetans, which were put there after the evil galactic space lord Xenu put all of the people into a volcano, and then it exploded and their spirits came down and inhabited our bodies before we were born. So now we have to pay money to Scientology for them to hook us up to an e-meter and do auditing sessions to try to cleanse the thetans out of our body. Because if they don't, then we'll be, we'll be losers. This is what they believe, You provide several examples of cult phobias and ask the cult member what he thinks of these other groups. You give examples of how former members of other groups came to understand phobia indoctrination and applied the cure to themselves. Step 3. Finally, you discuss the specifics of your loved one's relationship or group. Once the person sees that his situation, like the other groups you discussed, involves phobia indoctrination, much of the hold will loosen. Ask your loved one if he has ever talked with a former member of the group who left, and is happy that they did so. Would he be open to doing so, even if only to show the family he isn't controlled by fear? It is probably best not to attempt to do all 3 steps at once, nor is it wise to spread them out over many weeks. Timing the steps so there is continuity is most effective. Ideally, you want cult members to make the connections at their own pace. Here, let's read one example from the book. Discriminate between a legitimate fear and a phobia. I recently had a discussion with 32-year-old Eric, who had a fear of drowning due to traumatic childhood incidents in the water. He told me he would be participating in a triathlon in the coming weeks and asked me if I had any ideas of how to overcome his fear. I noted the 2 traumatic events, but my first step was to assess his competence. Have you had swimming lessons? Have you practiced long enough to feel confident? I asked. No, not really, he said, and added that he didn't even know how to float. I described competence building steps like learning to float and tread water comfortably for a long time. As Eric develops more competence and confidence, it will be easier to clear up any residual trauma from the past. Drowning is a scenario that needs to be taken very seriously indeed, but many phobias have much less serious consequences. Pretend that all of your worst fears are realized and ask yourself, then what? This question often takes people by surprise. I have found that getting people to articulate their fears helps drain phobias of their power. Bars. People with a fear of public speaking, one of the most common phobias, may see members of the audience getting bored, falling asleep, walking out, or telling one another how stupid or ill-prepared the speaker is. Once they verbalize their fears, they usually chuckle at the absurdity. As with any legitimate fear, practice can provide the skills, competence, and confidence necessary. Did you know the material? Do you have note cards or an outline of the points? You can always pause and take a long sip of water while you reorient yourself, etc. So an example for how to do this with people who are in MLM is like, they're worried that they're going to be perpetually broke if they don't pursue this MLM or whatever, right? I'm guessing those people also didn't have money before they joined the MLM. So the questions could be tailored in such a way now where you're asking them things like, you know, how were you with money before you joined the thing? Do you understand like how to save money? Do you understand how to budget? Have you ever used one of those apps on your phone where you log all of your purchases? Or, you know, do you do your accounting every month? Do you look at your banking and credit card statements at the end of every month and log every dollar that went in and every dollar that went out so that you can see actually how much you're making each month? Building those kind of habits would be helpful to curing the phobia. I know that when I was doing that, when I started actually logging my money in and money out, it was such a huge help for me to remember the little purchases that I might have forgotten about, you know, a coffee here, a lunch there, that you look back on and you go, okay, actually I spent more money than I thought I did. So I need to, you know, be conscious of that. And also when I started doing things like, okay, I'm going to just, every time I make any money, if somebody donates $10, even though it's stupid to like actually move money around in your bank account for this purpose, I'm going to transfer $1 of that 10% over to my savings. If I do a stream and I make $200 in donations, pay myself $20. It seems insignificant. It's like, why am I going to transfer myself $20? But once I started doing that, you know, money just started stacking up out of nowhere. And because sometimes, you know, let's say I had a really good stream where some superhero came in the chat and donated like, I don't know, I made cumulatively over the few hours like $500, right? Normally my rule of thumb would be to pay myself 10%. But in those cases where I'm like, oh, maybe it's the beginning of the month, I already paid my bills, etc. I'm going to transfer myself 300 of the 500, you know? I'm going to transfer like more than half, more than 50%. So, yeah, it was just amazing how that happened. Petition to have Marco branded tape recorder in the store. So funny. Is Marco OT9? You better believe it. All my homies budget with spreadsheets. So true. Okay. Moving on to the next one. I really have to pee as well. But you guys are all going to leave me if I go pee, right? No, you're not. Because I still have the most jaw-dropping bombshell examples of how to help your friends and loved ones get out of cults coming up right after I go pee. I'll be right back. And if I come back and somebody's backed up the Brinks truck, if I come back and it's just
Money.
that would be cool too. But we'll see. So give me a sec. I'll be right back. Guess who's back?
Anyhow.
She. Did I make all of the monies while I was gone? Tell me I made all the monies. Nope, made nothing. Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah, dude. All good. It's all good. We got one today from Galito Vargas, so, you know, we're grateful for that. Galito, the GOAT. GOAT Lito, am I right? Peace out, T. Doyle. T. Doyle gotta go bed. T. Doyle gotta go night-night. Here we go. Here's some summary points. Direct suggestion is one of the most common installation techniques. For instance, a leader might say, "You will die of a heart attack if you ever lose faith and leave." Typically, his tone of voice is one of absolute authority and confidence. His eyes are fixed, and his index finger is pointed directly at members of the audience. Indirect suggestion can be even more effective. This is like the Greg Stranadka, have you ever interviewed your future thing. The implication is that you're going to be working the same job to no improvement, and you're going to fucking be miserable. Angel said, bring us with you to the bathroom. OJOM says, a couple weeks ago, a guy in Starbucks started talking to me. Naturally, he's a 21-year-old in Amway, of course. Okay. Indirect suggestion. For example, cult members may be told, whenever a cult member loses faith and leaves, something terrible happens. By not stating specifics, individual members are free to fill in the blanks with their own greatest fears. The ex-member could be trapped in a room full of rats, possessed by evil spirits, and machine gun his own family, set himself to fire, and jump off a building. Indirect suggestion invites the person's deepest, darkest fantasies. In many cases, the most powerful fantasies are ones that emanate from within your own psyche. This is how cult members instill phobias. Stories and testimonials. Cult leaders may use stories about defectors to reinforce phobias. Remember Alice? She left the group last month and we just got word she has hung herself. See what happens when you leave the protection of the Almighty? These stories are usually fabrications. Sometimes they are partly true. The person did leave the group. Former members who return to the group may be asked to speak about the sin, greed, or suffering they encountered in the outside world. They describe how they were mugged, blanked, plagued by terrifying nightmares, or suffered unrelenting migraine headaches until they came back to God's family. The more horribly graphic, the more effective the story. Books, movies, and news stories. The late Frederick Lenz, Steve tells a good story about Frederick Lenz in my interview with him on my channel. He told his followers to read Stephen King novels. He was attempting to make them afraid of losing his protection from dark spiritual forces. You know, just nonsense. News items are excellent for eliciting fear and inculcating phobias. Remember during COVID how MLMs used COVID. I remember one MLM company was an insurance-themed one. They were like, oh, you know, all the non-essential businesses had to shut down for COVID, and we're still open, so that shows how essential we are, you know? Everyone's getting laid off. Everyone's losing their job. That's why you can never trust, the blah, 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 whatever. Type shit. Cult leaders like to tell members about floods, earthquakes, fires, famines, plagues, and wars as proof that the last days have arrived. They love to proclaim the destruction of the non-believers of the world. In addition to the biblical types, there are extraterrestrial-oriented cults, many which say the world will soon perish, and the only believers will be saved or changed with running the New World Order. Hilarious. You know, sad, of course, but fucking hilarious, too. Employing existing phobias and fears. If they find a person with an irrational fear of being buried alive, they tell them, hell, which you will experience if you leave the group, is like being put into a deep hole in the ground and having dirt slowly shoveled on you throughout eternity. You know? We need to laugh to disempower these villains. laugh at them. Here we go. Okay. Next up, wow, we're burning through these guys. This is really like, I've never done this before. I'm like literally sharing with you guys. Actually, I lied. I did do this once before with the book Doublespeak. I went through the book, I went through all my bookmarks, and I just gave them to you so that you didn't have to read the whole book. Okay, here we go. Appropriate questions to ask your loved one. This was a part that I highlighted in the book. Remember to take your time and be patient when waiting for a response. Allow long silences and gently rephrase the question if the answer is off track. Ask for specific examples. Try to get him to access his memory. Here we go. These are literal exact questions that you can ask. Now, I'm going to create some unique ones for the guide, and I'm going to include some of these and omit some of these. But these are examples of like actual questions you can ask. Why did that scare me? Thank you, DA Culture. David and Sharon Coley from Amway look into it. Thank you, DA Culture. Really appreciate you. It's always a husband and wife, isn't it? Peace out, Devin. Thank you. Recession-proof industry. Yep, that's another one. DA says, I had a high school friend recruit me to a company, and I tried recruiting my godfather's kids to join. This was in 2022. I left that same year, though. Fuck them. Yes, so true. Fingers crossed. Devin says, guys, this is boring. Snooze fest. Damn. Were you talking about when I was going pee? Here's some questions. What are positive things about the group and about being a member? What are the negative things? See, that's a clever one. I mean, right there is a clever one. If they say there's no negatives, that's a sign. But even asking them and getting them to ponder it is good. Who are your closest friends in the group? Tell me about them. What jobs do you do? How much say do you have about your job and how it's performed? What have you been learning? Have you had any interesting experiences? Tell me about them. Do you travel? Where do you go? What is your schedule? When do you wake up? When do you typically go to sleep? Where do you sleep? In a bed or on the floor in a sleeping bag? Do you have enough privacy? When is the best time to call you? Do you have questions or doubts about the group? Can you share them? If so, can you share them with the group? If so, how are your questions answered? If you have doubts, would you feel comfortable sharing them with me? I had a boss one time at the casino restaurant when I worked there 10 years ago who was such a fucking dickhead and an asshole. And, one time we were doing the kitchen like stand-up, the stand-up meeting to go over what the specials were and, the drink specials and whatever so we could tell the customers. And this fucking chef who was so up his own ass because he had once been on like a Canadian cooking show and like got second place or something like that. That was his big claim to fame, that he was on one of these fucking Master Chef or whatever the show was. He had once been second place on an episode of that show. That was his big fucking thing, The coolest thing about him was that he had once come second place on a bullshit fucking cooking show. So anywho, this guy one time during the pre-shift, he's like, what do y'all think about the new bowls what are customers saying about the new bowls that we've been using? And I guess a few days before, however long before, they started serving the steak and lobster dish on a new, rather than a plate, in a like wide bowl, which was silver and metal. It literally looked like a dog bowl. And that's what customers were saying. I had like a couple of the other servers told me like, yeah, it looks like a dog bowl. I had a couple people say it looks like a dog bowl. So at the stand-up meeting, he's like, I want to know the feedback from the customers. Guys, what do you think? What are people saying about the plating? Blah, blah, blah. So my dumb ass, I should have let somebody else fucking say it, but I was newer, and I guess all the other servers who had been working there longer knew better than to invoke the ire of this chef. So they didn't give him the honest feedback. I gave him the honest feedback, and I was like, yeah, customers, I've had a few customers say that it looks like a dog bowl. And he was like, offended by that. He was like, oh, I'm not going to listen to that. It's just negative, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, motherfucker, you asked. You asked for what the customer's honest feedback was. You think I have a dog in this fight? No pun intended. I have nothing to gain by telling you anything good or bad about the fucking customer's feedback. It's not like it's affecting how much I'm making. The fuck? What up, Jerry Jack? What up, Joseph? Okay, the mod's coming in. Hell yeah. So, yeah, that was super fucking stupid. Why did I even bring that? What even reminded me of that? Oh yeah, can you share your doubts about the group? What were your lifetime goals before joining? Have they changed? How have they changed? Do you think they might change again? What independent research have you done concerning the group? Are you open to learning more? How much do you actually know about the leader's background? You don't depend solely on the group for information, do you? If you get vague, evasive answers like, I don't know, work on building rapport. If your loved one seems unable to provide information, he may still be on the fringes, or he may simply be afraid to ask. Posing questions with open-mindedness and genuine curiosity rather than a show-me attitude will encourage him to seek answers. In his research, he may discover that he has been told a lie. If he knows he has been lied to, you might ask how he can trust what he's been told. By encouraging distrust of the cult and hierarchy, by encouraging distrust of the cult hierarchy, you are helping the individual to think critically and independently, encourage his integrity and self-trust. That's what it's about. It's not about arguing. It's not about saying, show me. It's about empowering them to think critically for themselves. Further down, he talks about in a business cult, the motivating factor. Oh, here, hold on. A person in a science fiction cult will give different answers to a person in a Bible cult. For example, a surviving member of Heaven's Gate claimed he didn't think of the group as a cult, but as a class for higher learning. In a business cult, the motivating factor is typically money, so you can tailor your questions to ask about money. How much have you made? How much have you spent? How much are you aware of how much other people have made? Etc., etc. The guy who told you he makes $20,000 a month. Have you seen proof of that? Do you know for sure? Is there any reason why he would talk about that and be untruthful about that? If the cult member is involved with multi-level marketing, ask him if he looked into other ventures. Again, this is dated, such as internet or mail order business. This is, you want to respect his intention to fulfill it by offering alternatives. Ask him if he has a set maximum length of time to be involved before deciding to change. Would it be 3 months, 6 months, or a year? Speaking of which, I have to check in with Dominic Izzo.
Thanks, Marco.
Izzo. Dominic.
I'm not a loser.
Izzo. Because he had told me on a call, I have to go back and watch the footage, but this was a call we did before our debate where I asked him this exact question, how long is he going to commit to this? And he said his goal was X amount of years and $1 million. Mind you, he's already in his 50s. So, let's see. A person who is being controlled by a therapist or is in a therapy cult wants to be healed. He might be indoctrinated to believe that he has to keep re-experiencing his traumas until they are discharged, like electricity from a battery. Sounds like the Ray Higdon, Jessica Higdon play to win show, doesn't it? Just oversharing and reliving your trauma. That was the stupidest fucking most abusive thing. Tell him there's one of several methods that can be used to deal with traumas. Are you open to learning a faster, easier technique? One that promotes choice as well as healing. Ultimately, we want to use what the cult member says about the reasons he joined to help him reality test. What was he promised would happen when he joined the group? In MLM, this is obvious. You hear people talk about, oh, well, within 3 months, I was able to quit my job and started making $100,000 and blah, 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 which is, of course, not true. How does it compare with what he's doing in the group today? With the information you gained about his life in the group, you can ask specific questions. This is another key distinction. Rather than telling people, Bob, you've been in this thing for 5 months and you haven't made any money, blah, blah, blah. Ask them based on what they say. Did you know that you would be working in a fish factory 16 hours a day? Did you expect to be sleeping only 5 hours a night eating fast food? Did you dream that you would be discouraged from seeing your family and friends? In MLM, these questions can be tailored. Did you expect to be in Walmart and Target? Telling people, hey, I love those shoes. Did you expect to be sitting in a cafe all afternoon, reading Who Moved My Cheese, drinking your Amway Perfect water, and telling a girl 15 years your junior that you like her iPad? No? Something to think about. You do not want to assault your loved one with such questions, since that will make him defensive. Rather, use them over a series of mini interactions as your loved one reveals the details of his life. Pursued skillfully, this line of questioning can give him reasons to question his involvement with the group. Bars. Plant doubt with hypothetical questions. This is also good. You might introduce an example from a different cult. So let's say they're in Amway, and you say, what if you knew someone in the Way International? People in the Way believe they're doing God's will. They seem to know the Bible well. They quote Bible verses. What if they discovered the leader's credentials weren't what he claims? He says he has a doctorate in theology, but what if, in fact, he bought a mail-order degree? I guess you would have to conclude the leader was misrepresenting his credentials. If you were in the Way, would that be enough to get you to leave? What if the leader then said, God wants us to lie? Do you believe that God needs to lie, trick, and manipulate? These are questions that presumably can lead to more discussions about the leader of their own cult or MLM. What up, Kobe? Pray the manipulation away, yeah. Okay, let's move on. I only have 3 of these left, bro. This is crazy. Here we go. All right. Here we go. Here we learn about thinkers. Where is it? We learn about thinkers, feelers, doers, believers. Customizing your approach based on each. A key to the success of your interactions will be to direct your questions and comments to your loved one's authentic identity. Are they a thinker? Are they emotion-based? Are they action-based? Are they faith-based? This requires knowing whether your loved one is a thinker, feeler, doer, or believer. Stephen Hassan says, I actually was taught this model while a leader in the Moonies, which is another cult. Thinkers are analytic. Feelers value emotion over rational analysis. Doers are activists and workers. Believers value intuition and spiritual experience. Thinkers, feelers, doers, and believers respond differently to questions. Some people belong in more than one of these categories. Decide which model is closest to the cult member, then concentrate on framing the questions for greatest effect. This is something that we would go over in a one-on-one call, okay? This is why I can't get on calls with everybody, and this is why it's literally impossible for me to give one-size-fits-all advice to people who have friends or loved ones in MLM cults, because each situation is different. I don't know your brother. You know your brother. I don't know how he is, if he's a thinker, a feeler, a doer, or a believer. I don't know how he responds. I don't know what your dynamic is, if you get along, etc. This is why people who ask for my help, I need to be very careful so that I don't mislead them, because I don't want them to then go into an interaction with their loved one, from a thinker standpoint, but the person is a feeler. Don't go in with logic and an analytical approach when the person is a emotional based person. So yeah, it's very hard, but this is like why we did why I do the one-on-one calls, so that I can get more information, talk to the person one-on-one, and help them actually create a tailored strategy and approach for dealing with their loved one. Okay. So, give some examples of these. When asked why they have joined, thinkers will be apt to say, because I found the truth, or all of my questions about life have been answered, or I was impressed with the group science conferences and their claim to be bringing together science and religion. To shift a thinker's perspective, you might ask questions like, what if you found out the divine principle isn't true? What if you found that a Bible quote was taken out of context? What convinced you that this teaching and no other was the highest truth? Have you gone back to the source material to validate or confirm the claims, quotes, contexts, and conclusions of the teaching? How would you recognize a higher truth? What would it sound like? What would you do if you found an even higher truth? Oh, a tricky one. And so on. What are the arguments used by critics of your group? This is a good one to ask. What do you say to people who say that this is a pyramid scheme? We just watched this on the last stream about the Unicity Zoom meeting. We had Jelly Snack, member of the cult, join a Unicity Zoom and ask, is this a pyramid scheme? And what do they say? It's not a pyramid scheme. We have a natural product. Pure yap, you know? Feelers. You can ask questions like, how did you know this was the group for you? If your group teaches unconditional love, what happens to those who decide to leave? Would the group still love that person and spend time with them? What if your best friends in the group turn their back on you because you asked a question that the leader criticizes or refuses to answer? On and on and on. Do you ever miss your friends and family? How does it make you feel when you have to ask permission to see them? You know, Amway, how does it feel when you have to check upline to buy a dog or have a baby? Doers, you know, it applies to each. You know, you can apply, I'm going to condense this for my own guide, of course, and tailor the questions a little bit. But yeah. And by the way, I'm not selling this. Like, this is going to be a free guide that's just compiling what I think is the most helpful information, which is publicly available. And also still, you know, if you want to dive into this deeper, go buy Freedom of Mind. Go buy Steve Hassan's books. Combating Cult Mind Control, another good one. This one is more tailored to exactly like the approach of getting people out, though. 2 left. A powerful self-healing strategy. Steve writes, I believe that one must learn to control one's own mind. The following exercise is one of the most important and effective self-healing strategies I've encountered. Practice it in a step-by-step manner. Here we go. First, the former member starts by writing a detailed outline of his cult experience. In essence, a timeline beginning before his recruitment and ending with his departure from the group. This timeline should include both positive and negative events, as well as people, places, and activities. By recording all of these memories, the person will be in a better position to process their involvement. Once their outline is in place, the former member should sort through his notes to trigger memories of additional positive, negative, and curious or strange experiences. The aim is to recover thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that might have been ignored while he was in the cult, and to assess values and beliefs that were distorted by the group. Step 2. With this outline as a guide, former members visualize the scene of their recruitment from a dissociated or observer perspective as if they were watching themselves on TV. This differs dramatically from remembering it from a first-person perspective and directly reliving what they saw and felt at the time. Knowing they can take control of their memories and choose to remember them from an observer perspective is powerful. Ex-members come to realize they do not need to re-experience their cult self with each memory. The third-party point of view should be the default setting for their cult experiences and one that occurs automatically. If a person wants to re-experience the cult thoughts and feelings, all they need to do is step into the picture again. Bars. The next is perhaps the most significant part of the healing technique. I suggest the client go back in time to crucial moments in his involvement and relive them with new information, resources, and perspectives that he now has. During this exercise, keep in mind that these negative things happened to a younger you. You did the best you could at the time based on your knowledge and abilities. Now you are older, wiser, and have more resources about cult practices. Uriel, appreciate you. DA, no idea what you're talking about. By imagining how you might have acted differently, a person can integrate their new resources into the cult identity. For example, the cult member might imagine a different response to the cult recruiter. Instead of saying, that sounds fascinating, they tell the person, I'm not interested, or leave me alone, or go away before I expose the group publicly. A critical piece in my own healing was going back to relive a moment when Moon, the leader of the group, Sun Myung Moon, was telling leaders there would come a time when the Constitution would be amended to make it a capital offense for people to have sex with people other than the one assigned to them. Instead of agreeing wholeheartedly with Moon, I needed to tell Moon in front of the other leaders how crazy he was and that I would never participate in a mass genocide and that I was leaving the group. It felt so good to imagine that I could confront Moon and persuade other leaders to leave the group that it helped transform and integrate my cult identity with my pre-cult and present self. This technique of revisualizing past problems with the added resources of the present is very effective. Cult members who have issues that stem from their childhood can envision the younger self claiming and exercising their personal power. When necessary, they can work through major developmental stages to gain positive experiences and return to past experiences with their mother, father, siblings, and friends so they can learn to accept the mistakes of the past. Isn't that amazing? Ease the transition to life outside the cult. The first year after leaving a cult should be viewed as a transitional period where few, if any, major commitments are made. An ex-member must take one step at a time and avoid taking on too much in an attempt to make up for lost time. Instead, they should plan manageable, practicable skills and fulfill them, developing self-confidence as they go. I think once again of Stefan and Jenna talking about how, Stefan, I remember he was saying how he felt ill-equipped to do some like adulting type things because he'd spent all of his 20s in Amway. And now in his 30s, he felt like he was underprepared for certain things. Like I think one example he brought up was not knowing how to mow the lawn. When a former member seems to be struggling for direction in post-cult life, vocational or pastoral counseling is a good choice. I personally don't recommend pastoral, but counseling can be good. However, also I would warn about counseling as well, because there are even therapists who are under the spell of MLM, therapists who try to recruit their own clients, which in my opinion is a huge, huge violation of their responsibilities, their duty of care as a therapist or counselor, and also a desecration of what they're supposed to be doing. Many ex-members need practical advice about writing their resumes, selecting schools to attend, and subjects to pursue, how to make friends, how to communicate, in particular, how to talk about their cult experience. Talk to Always Marco, book a one-on-one call, do an episode of Multi-Level Misery, work through it with somebody who actually understands it, or talk to someone online, talk to a former member. There's probably tons of people that you can find on Reddit. It doesn't have to be me. Find someone on Reddit, find someone on Instagram or TikTok who had an experience with that company, and you can bond over that too. Open and supportive discussions with family and friends can help a loved one overcome the stigma of having been in a cult. Take solace in knowing that everybody's been approached or involved with one of these things before, or they've had a friend or family member who's been in one. With the passage of time, former cult members will grow stronger and live happier, more fulfilled lives. I believe that a key to a successful recovery depends on remembering and reintegrating the cult experience rather than repressing it. Former members can take pride knowing they have struggled for and won something very precious. It is my hope that everyone who has ever had a cult experience will never forget or deny that it really happened. It is by remembering that we may preserve freedom and work to make the world a better place. Isn't that awesome? Let's see if I missed anything here. Here's one that I missed. Oh, no, I didn't miss that. We did it.
Marco.
A little chill stream, a little reading, a little book report, reading with the Emperor, with Grandpa stream. I think that was good. I think it was informative. I think people will, there's a smaller group of people who will who will definitely be helpful to. So yeah, I hope it's helpful to you as well. And it was helpful to me, certainly, because as I said, I'm working on this guide right now, trying to condense information together that will help people leave cults. So some light, a little 1-2. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Stefan and Jenna interview was so fascinating. Yes. Yeah, I look forward to what happens next. And, you know, there's so much there's so much that's gone on behind the scenes in the last couple of years that I can't talk about, but I wish I could, you know. But inshallah, soon enough, you know, one day I'll be able to tell you all about it. And yeah, it'll be good. It will be good. Chris M says, I like Marco reading night. Can we do a green eggs and scam next week? That's funny. Board Black Sheep says, not all therapists do their job in my country. Some don't get all the needed certification and do esoteric stuff. Some get diploma mills degrees. It's quite the Wild West out there. Yeah. Appreciate you, Chris M. All right, well, unfortunately, bad news. Uh-oh. I know. That's all I have for you guys today. 2 hours. We've already done 2 hours. I'm going to go ahead and end this, add the chapter markers, and I'll see you again on Saturday. And let's do Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Hilarious. I've got 2 episodes of Multi-Level Misery banked. I've got an interview with Julie Anderson banked in person. And I have an in-person, I don't think I've told y'all about this, I have an in-person interview with Fidel dropping tomorrow on Patreon and for YouTube channel members. It was filmed in person over a year ago in Thailand with Fidel. I didn't release it at the time because I didn't want retribution from I Am Academy and because of the things we talk about in it. But I Am Academy has now since shut down, so I've just held on to it. And yeah, that's coming out tomorrow for everybody who's on Patreon. Even if you are on the Patreon for $1 a month, you can sign up for the whole year up front, and it costs you like $10 for the whole year. So yeah, really excited about that one in person with Fidel. It was filmed after our first time meeting, so excited about that. And yeah, really appreciate you guys. What can I say? Join the Discord to get notified when we're live. If I ever do Discord voice chat or movie night again, you'll know. And thumbs up the ting, of course. And what else? What was I going to say? Always MarcoMerch.com. Use the code GOONS. Patreon, Streamlabs, you can donate. Super chat, super thanks. Support the mission. You know, we got the lawsuits. You see the dono goal for the lawyer fees. You know, we're trying. I'm trying to make the world a better place and help people. So thank you guys. And always appreciate you guys giving a fuck and watching. So yeah, thank you, John Reardon. Thank you, Board Black Sheep. Thank you, DJ BK. Thank you, everybody. Peace out.
I took a full load.
Marco.
Do you like me?
Fuck you, Marco. Fuck you, Marco.
Saturday night. Peace out.